Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 391 of the Stacey West podcast. I'm your host tonight, Ben, and I'm joined by Chris. How are you doing, mate? Are you well?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, very well. I couldn't believe it's been less than a week since our first talking point of this evening. We will get to this, ladies and gents,
Yes.
but the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, is that we have a new club captain. I was not expecting to be talking about that this evening because that felt like it was ages ago. So much in my life, and I think in Lincoln City, really, in recent history, has actually happened since then. But yeah, so I'm well, but I've been an incredibly busy man. How are you?
Yeah, same. I've just been like horrifically busy in the day job. It's a very, very busy time for us at the moment. With like merging and restructuring and all sorts going on. So very, very fun and busy. And yeah, I've not had much time to do anything else other than work, finish work, collapse and go to bed. So
well, that's no fun. I have to admit, my work's been taking over a bit of time as well, but that's not really what's been taking up the majority of my time recently. House things are going on,
yes.
And also I've got a, in the last few times you and I have done a podcast together, you said, "Oh, what have you been up to, mate?" And I said, "I've got nothing interesting to tell you. I've actually got an interesting story to tell you here, as our contractually obliged witty banter section at the start of the podcast." So myself and Gary and our good friend Dave, we went to Scarborough for the weekend. For the night on Saturday, camped, which I wasn't massively keen on, but hey, it was all good fun to see a one-day music festival that Levellers were headlining. Now, I really like Levellers, but I'd never actually seen them live before, so I was properly looking forward to this. Turns out McFly were also playing at the other end of the town on that day as well. You couldn't get much more polar opposite than that, could you? But I was definitely the Levellers gig. Anyway, I thought I'd be sensible, and I was prepared, and I was planning my attire. And I'm sure it's fine to talk about undergarments on this podcast, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I wore the sporty undergarment with a little pocket in it, so to put my phone in to keep it nice and safe, because I thought I'm probably going to be jumping about quite a lot today. I best not lose my phone. So that was a sensible thing to do, a good idea, I thought. So it was my safety pocket, is how I kept referring to it throughout the day. Anyway, evening goes on, and my phone is connected to my watch, and I was on the middle of it's not really a dance floor, is it? The gig venue, but near the front where everyone was dancing at the Levellers gig. And turns out that accidentally in my pocket, somehow, my phone was calling 999. So yeah, Yorkshire Police weren't best pleased with me. A few minutes passed, and I received a phone call back from Yorkshire Police, and I was a little bit well oiled. I will admit to that. I was like, oh. No, I thought I was in proper trouble, and I couldn't hear what they were saying because I was in the middle of a gig, but I kind of wanted to at least answer the phone and let them know that everything's fine. So thank you for your concern. I'm at a Levellers gig. It's really good. I'm having a lovely time. Please don't worry about me, and put the phone down, much to Gary's amusement. But it turns out that pocket that I've been calling my safety pocket all afternoon certainly was my safety pocket, because I got my own police escort, it turns out.
That's excellent. It reminds me actually that I was reading a story about, I think it might have been Download last year. Lots of people the Apple Watch has got a feature alongside the iPhone where if you're involved in a car accident, it will automatically phone the police and any of your emergency contacts. And it turned out that last year at Download, there were quite a lot of people with iPhones and Apple Watches in the pit. So when they were in the mosh pit, they were slamming into each other, and the sensors were suggesting that they'd been in a car accident, and it was attempting to call 999. So
yeah, maybe that was it.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
That does actually make me feel better, but I'm very, very sorry to Yorkshire Police for wasting precious and valuable time.
If it was South Yorkshire Police, then it's probably fine. We know what they're like.
Well, I guess it's North Yorkshire and Scarborough, isn't it?
Yeah, East Yorkshire. I don't think they have a. Do they have a North Yorkshire? I know they've got a West Yorkshire and a South Yorkshire. But I don't know.
Don't know.
Someone can probably fill us in.
Whoever's time I wasted, sorry, but I had a lovely time.
There we go. So yeah, I mean, obviously, the Imps at the minute we're sort of deep into preseason. Lots of things happening. But as Chris mentioned, the first thing that we're going to talk about is actually something that's been the case for a week at this point. Obviously, we didn't have a podcast last night. We've postponed it to Thursday this week. Yeah, the news is that Tendai Darikwa is going to be the club captain for the season. We kind of assumed as much, didn't we? And it was one of those where we looked at it and went, we little peek behind the curtain. Emily and I did a podcast a few weeks ago where we asked the question and we said, this is who people have suggested in the Stacey West chat. Mm-hmm. The problem with that was that while we'd suggested those, I think we all knew it was going to be Tendai.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer from the outside looking in. He was a bit of a leader in the team last season. Mm-hmm. Even without being officially named club captain, you could see his leadership on the pitch. You know, that's the only bit we as supporters get to see is the on the pitch. But it was very, very clear that he had a big influence off the pitch as well, from the way he conducted himself, from a very little bit of contact time we did get with him right at the start of the season. He just seems like a good bloke, really. So it seemed like a little bit of a no-brainer. And I don't think anyone will have been surprised by that news. It's not the first time he's been club captain as well. He captained Wigan to the League One title in the 21-22 season. So he's certainly got experience of that, and he's a more experienced player now than he was then. So yeah, basically complete no-brainer. Sounds like a really good appointment, very sensible appointment. Yeah, go on, Tendai. If you can do the same for us as you did at Wigan that season, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it. He's the talisman now, isn't he? That's going to be his lucky charm to be leading us to the League One title. We could only hope / dream.
Wildest dreams.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one no-brainer. At one point towards the end of last season, another one of the no-brainers seemed to be that Joe Gardner would be returning to the Imps on loan for the entire season this time out. That's not the case. He has gone to Mansfield on loan for the whole season. So I think initially seeing it, you think, oh, that's a bit disappointing. We've lost out to Mansfield. But then when you probably scratch away a little bit and look under the surface, you think, I think it makes sense for probably all parties. They're going to be a club that will be able to offer him a lot of game time. If he wants to be possibly similar to the way that, JJ McKiernan's gone out on loan, if he wants to be playing first team football every week. He's not necessarily going to get that with us due to the depth in the squad that we have at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, was there that initial disappointment for you, and then did it subside quite quickly?
My gut feeling was that if we were going to sign him, we would have signed him right at the beginning of the window. Yeah. So the fact that we didn't made me kind of feel that was never really an option for us. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. If you said to me, would you like to have Joe Gardner in the current squad? Yes, I would. He was good. He was really exciting to watch last year. I think he could be a really effective player at this level. He didn't get a lot of game time, but the little bits that we did see of him were exciting nonetheless, and he looked like he's got some real potential. But do we need him? No, we just don't. Let's not forget the only reason we signed him in January was because Jack Moylan got injured. So he really was, and it was quoted in the press from the club that he was a direct replacement for the injured Jack Moylan. And Jack Moylan isn't injured anymore. So, are we? Sometimes you can have too much of a good thing, can't you? And we've got a lot of players that can play in that bank of three behind the striker now, and I think they're all offered different profiles, which is really good. I think I really like the idea of Jack as a number 10 eventually. I think he's got some really, really threatening attributes to play centrally that are different to other players that could play there in Tom Bayliss and Ben House, of course. Obviously, Rico did towards the end of the season at times, but I see him more playing one of those two wide areas. The only question mark I've got about Jack in that regard is, we mentioned this last year's decision-making, and if you make a decision in the centre of a pitch that's not great, you're more likely to be directly punished than if it's out wide. So you're a little bit safer out wide. And Jack had a lot of joy playing left wing for Shelbourne before he joined us. So he's very likely, I think, to at times play on that left wing. I think Eric Ring can. I think Rico Hackett possibly will at times as well. So we've got good options out there. I just can't see like where would Joe Gardner fit in the pecking order to play in that left wing position. I think he's more suited to left wing than maybe in the 10 role. So he'd be certainly not a guaranteed starter, probably not second choice. He'd be a squad option, wouldn't he, in terms of, and he's a very similar sort of player in terms of profile to Jack Moylan, which is why we signed him in the first place. So would he be a good addition to the squad? Yeah, can't deny he would be. Would he play, though? Who knows? Will he play at Mansfield? Almost certainly. Yeah. So, for his perspective, from his point of view, you can completely understand it. We say we've missed out on him. We have no idea whether we ever went in for him because we've just mentioned, as you mentioned in the intro to it, the depth in the squad suggests we probably don't actually need him as much as we'd like to have another good player. We all want good players. We probably don't need him. We're probably covered in that part of the pitch already.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's one of those where it's a name that we're obviously partly familiar with. And I think there was a feeling that we didn't necessarily see the best of what he had to offer towards the end of last season for, fairly obvious reasons. He came in and got his red card, early doors, which I still think was unjustified. But then, he's not, he didn't have a huge amount of time to stake an impact or make an impact on the first 11. So yeah, I think the initial disappointment subsided quite quickly when I looked at it and I went, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's fine.
I hope this doesn't come across as like trying to be all noble after the fact. I was just really pleased that he has got a loan because there's a few players who Premier League teams will have to hold on to because they're not allowed to loan out as many players as they historically have been. So they're going to have to pick and choose those loans a little bit more. And there was a potential that he could, a loan move might fall down. He gets stuck in the under 21s again or 23s, whatever it is that they have. So I'm just pleased he's going to play because I really liked him. I thought he was a really exciting player. And hey, who knows? This time next year, if he has a good season in League One on loan at Mansfield, we lose Jack Moylan for £5 million because he's had a great season, and then we can replace him with Joe Gardner a year later. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Keith kind of says it here. I think we have to give some game time to our own young players and bring those on rather than bring in loans like Gardner.
Yeah, I
think the development aspect of it is quite important. Obviously, we do have players that we will be bringing through from the academy and from the youth team. But if you can, surely it would make more sense to invest that time and invest that development into one of our own, for want of a better phrase. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to be on the fringes of the squad and not guaranteed week in, week out game time, then to me that makes absolute sense to use the academy and the younger lads to fill out those spots.
Yeah, well, he probably wouldn't even be guaranteed a place on the bench, would he? Let's be honest.
No.
And another player to add into the mix in terms of just as an example of our strength and depth in that part of the pitch is forgetting about Zayn Okoro, who is now signed a permanent professional deal with us. Who is, I don't think he's going to be a starter, but I think we see him as a potential first team player, just as we did with Joe Gardner when we signed him on loan. So that's another one of our own. And if you give me the choice to say, would you like Zayn Okoro or Joe Gardner to perform that kind of role in the squad for the season? Obviously, it's going to be Zayn Okoro because he's ours.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, not too disappointed in the aftermath of that. But Joe Gardner, hopefully he'll have a decent season at the Stags apart from two particular games.
Absolutely, yes. As long as he's terrible against us, he can have a great season apart from that.
Indeed. So, so the next bit of news that we've had came a little bit out of nowhere, really, from yesterday, where David Preece has returned to Lincoln City as a first-team goalkeeping coach. Obviously, the immediate reaction to that is, but Scott Fry's our goalkeeping coach. The press release states that he joins the Imps to replace Scott Fry, who is set to leave or set to join a championship club. Fry will continue in a coaching capacity while serving his notice period or until agreement is reached to allow him to take up the new role. So I mean, two things to discuss here. The first one being, another. It's another member of staff that has left and gone on to the things. I mean, he was obviously mentioned in the press release that he was part of the Sunderland team. The side, well, the backroom stuff there that got the promotion during the playoffs. It seems like it's a welcoming environment is probably the wrong thing to say, but it does seem to be that we have a number of people in these positions coming back, doesn't it? Which kind of speaks quite highly of how the environment is, I guess. I don't know, that sounds a little bit bootlicky, but it's not meant to.
No, you're right. I think it's great that it's a character that we all know from a time in the club's past, and he was that's before the Cowleys. It was at a time that we don't reference too often, let's be honest, and for too much positivity. But he was someone that always came across quite well. I can't pretend I know the guy. I've never met him, never spoken to him. I remember listening, because obviously our previous goalkeeper always take part of the Goalkeepers Union. It's again contractually obliged to listen to any podcast involving any goalkeeper. So I remember there was a podcast he was on between jobs a little while ago, and he just came across really well. This is a few years ago now. He just came across really well, and I was attracted to the name because I recognised his name from being part of Lincoln City's coaching staff, and always kind of took an interest in his playing career towards the end of it, only because he played in Iceland briefly. And when I was really starting to get into playing Football Manager, he was a goalkeeper that was available quite cheap, that was quite good because he played in Iceland. So that just stuck in my mind as someone as just a name that always jumps out to me. But yeah, I've got no qualms about this. He's clearly a well sought after goalkeeping coach. He's since leaving us last time has been Barnsley's goalkeeping coach, Sunderland's, has spent time at Östersunds in Sweden, and most recently spent a couple of seasons in India as well, most recently at Mumbai City. So yeah, he certainly gets about. In his playing career, as well as playing in England and Scotland and Iceland, also spent a good few years in Denmark. So just an interesting character that offers a little bit of insight into those. I don't know if he's seen as a scout at all, but we'll have a bit of an insight into those markets. But I imagine he's just brought in to be a goalkeeper coach, to be honest, because it sounds like Scott Fry, who is going to be leaving the football club. I think there's a little bit of ambiguity around Scott Fry, because it says that he'll be serving his notice with the club unless a compensation fee could be agreed with said championship club. So I assume that Scott's agreed to join the championship club. Now, it's my understanding that in general terms in football, a notice period is around 6 months unless a negotiation is made between the two clubs, or unless there's a compensation fee already in the contract. So like when we lost Dan and Nick, I assumed there was a fee already built into that contract, just like with a player. I'm assuming for a goalkeeping coach, you probably don't do that. So I don't know how this works. So I'm a little bit confused as to whether Scott Fry is actually going to be serving his notice period of up to maybe Christmas time, in which case we're going to have two goalkeeping coaches, or we're just basically waiting for the championship club to offer us a little bit of cash, so we can say, we grant you the license effectively to terminate Scott's current contract sooner. So maybe we've got two goalkeeping coaches, maybe we've got one. But I think the question this brought up for me, Ben, is Scott Fry's job title changed last summer from just goalkeeping coach to goalkeeping coach / set piece coach. And last season we were so dominant from set pieces. We shout this from the rooftops, don't we? That we scored the most goals from set pieces out of any team in the country. That's good, and that is from a coaching point of view. I know we use AI and lots of analytics, but from a coaching point of view of actually putting the players through it, that was Scott Fry's doing. So if we are going to be losing him immediately, I think that leaves a rather large hole in the coaching team in regards to set pieces. But we shall see.
Yeah, it's one of those. We do have a question actually, which we'll pick up on a little bit later on. One of the questions from the Discord around that. So. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's never great to see somebody going, but it's nice to see that he'll be going to a high level. But there is a slight concern there, like you say, if he was responsible for, I mean, obviously not entirely responsible, I'm sure there was input everywhere, but if he's kind of got that moniker of set piece coach, I think we all know from the memes around the Arsenal set piece coach, it can be quite a key member of the backroom staff. So it'll be interesting to see whether we hire another set piece coach or whether it's kind of one that is a role that is developed within the current structure, and if they just kind of say, okay, we'll all pitch in with it. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one.
I think that is going to be the most interesting thing, and depending on how long Scott Fry's notice period actually is, and whether he does move immediately or do we do have the benefit of his coaching for a little while until he does join the new team. I guess that there's a bit of ambiguity around that, but that is a genuine concern of mine. And like you say, it's probably not all him, but I think Scott has to take a hell of a lot of credit for the outstanding performance of us from a set piece perspective last season.
Yeah.
And yeah, I certainly would hope this season that we're not as reliant on set pieces, because we were brilliant at that, but maybe we didn't score enough from open play as we'd hoped to, though that did improve as towards the end of the season with the system change. For the majority of the season, we were really quite reliant on set plays. It's a great attribute to have, but you don't want to be a one-trick pony, do you? So, but I would hate for it to go the other way, and we score loads of goals from open play, but we can't hit the barn door with a banjo from a set piece, because we've recruited physically strong, physically dominant players to continue that. And I would like to see someone be given that responsibility, whether it is a new coach or whether it's someone in the current coaching team that then takes on that responsibility themselves. I would like to see it as a defined role, considering the importance that we place on set pieces as a club.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, like I say, it seems to be a role that more and more clubs are delegating to an individual now that will be able to, like say, use the analytics, use the AI, data that's coming in, and kind of put that into practice, because it's all very well and good having reams and reams of paper and data and spreadsheets. I've said Chris's trigger word, but it's all very well and good having that, but unless you can put that into practice, you're not going to make anything of it. And I'm sure that was at least part of Scott's job. So I mean, obviously, yeah, depending on where he's going, I'm sure we'll all wish him all the best.
Oh, 100% wish him all the best. He deserves a move up because he's been really effective in his role. I think one thing that's quite interesting, and this has just popped into my head now. I appreciate we don't want to spend too long on this, but you mentioned the Arsenal set piece coach. Now, I think the trend started at Brentford a few years ago, and particularly in the Premier League, I think it's very common these days to have set piece coaches. I don't think it's as common lower down, because that's it's effectively an extra wage, isn't it, for an extra coach, potentially, if it's a specific set piece coach. I know Scott obviously had a dual role, which maybe helped us out from a financial point of view, but a higher percentage of total goals scored are from set pieces in the lower leagues compared to the Prem. So it's almost more important, or it's a bigger advantage to be good at them at our level compared to in the Premier League, because there's just a high percentage of goals scored from those. So yeah, I'd be really hopeful that if we don't have the benefit of Scott for a little while, that we replace that element in our coaching team. I think the more specializations you can have in a coaching team, the better, to be honest. So that would be pretty important of my list of priorities to find out, to be honest with you.
Fair enough, absolutely. And it's a question that Joe's asked in the live YouTube chat here. He says, do we not risk having too many cooks, having more and more coaches? I think it's a fair question. It's whether, I think it's not necessarily about how many they have. I think it's how they're deployed. It seems to be, the way with pretty much everything. If you have 9 coaches focused on one thing, they're all going to get, there's going to be noise everywhere, and no one's going to get a clear message across. If you have different coaches that are designed, that their training programs are designed to really laser focus in on one area of the pitch or one area of the game, I don't see a problem with that, because number one, you're going to have much more focus and intensive knowledge and ideas from one individual being said, right, like set piece coach, we'll use it as the example. If you have somebody saying, right, this is what we are doing at X, Y, and Z, if we get a corner on the left, we're going to try this, this, and this, and this, because we think this might work. and you have those people concentrating solely on that plan for each game, and then they say, right, they drill that into the players. The players have obviously got to take all that information on board, but it's also one less thing for Marcus Gabala to think about. He's not going to have 1,001 different things in his head. On top of that, he's got to think about set pieces. On top of that, he's then got to think about all of the other, individual elements of the coaching staff. So I think, provided it's deployed in the right way, I don't necessarily think too many cooks is an appropriate one to use for this one.
Not for this one, but I think it's a good question. I think it's a good
absolutely.
point, just generally. And I think there is a sweet spot with that, because you ultimately want increased specialization. I think we'd all find that in our roles. If our workload was reduced and we were to focus on just one element of our job rather than the whole of our jobs, you're going to get pretty good at that one little bit, aren't you? And when you haven't got to worry about the other stuff. I suppose the problem comes when you've got too many individuals, and it becomes difficult then to have a coherent message that's all completely joined up. So I imagine that there is a sweet spot to try and find into that workload and balance. Personally, I don't think we're anywhere near that with a head coach, 2 assistants, and a goalkeeping coach plus set piece specialist. That's 4 and or 5 coaches that are taking responsibility of certain elements of the game. Now, I don't know if it's split up in this way, but a lot of coaching tends to be split up in possession, out of possession, offensive transition, defensive transition, and set pieces. They're the kind of, and then you can split the game into thirds in terms of build up and finishing, and so that theoretically, if you're a Premier League club, I imagine you'll see a specialist in each of those areas. So I think it's probably no surprise that the most successful clubs probably have the larger coaching staffs. But I think at our level, we're all right. But I genuinely, this isn't to debunk the question, because I think it's a very valid question. I think the point really is there's a sweet spot. I don't think we're too far with that. But hey, ultimately, performances on the pitch will tell, won't they? Because ultimately, the coaches are there to help the players perform on the pitch. And if they perform on the pitch, I don't think any of us are going to be complaining about how many coaches we have.
No, absolutely not. It's the question, isn't it? And it seems to happen when things are going well. It's not questioned and it's embraced. And then as soon as something doesn't go well, it's really, really heavily criticised. So yeah, we'll no doubt see what happens. But obviously, we are deep into the pre-season. We are going to talk about pre-season friendlies and the aftermath of those friendlies. I'm just thinking, we're 27 minutes in. I know it's probably a little bit early, but given that the pre-season stuff might be a little bit of a meaty one, should we take a quick break now?
Let's.
Okay, so we will take a very quick break. We'll catch you on the other side of this. If you're listening, stick around if you're watching live on on YouTube or Facebook. So yes, we'll see you in a sec.
I cannot multitask. I am so bad at it.
That's all right. I'm kind of in the same boat.
Okay. That's all that. All those notes are neatly laid out now.
Oh, England ladies are 2-0 down.
Oh, well, that's not ideal now, is it?
No, the first goal was awful, but there we go.
You know what? Side note, this is not for the podcast, of course, but it's probably got good for now. And I feel bad about it, but I haven't taken much interest in the ladies' Euros. I didn't take any interest in the Club World Cup. I've watched more of the Women's Euros than I have the Club World Cup. Mm-hmm. So, hey, read into that what you will. But it just doesn't grab me. I feel a bit bad that it hasn't, but it hasn't. This evening, my partner normally goes out on a Thursday evening to our local art club to paint some pictures. I don't know what she does. It's a little social thing. And she was, I didn't even know this was going on. And she said to me, I don't think I'm going to go this evening. Football's on. I was like, who are you? This is the wrong way around. That's normally what I say. I didn't even know it was on. So then she was telling me all about a football match that I didn't know existed. So yeah, but she did actually go to art in the end because she's going to take her phone and put it on there or something. I don't know. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting. But it's a shame that they're down because I did watch the Wales game and they absolutely battered them in that one.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It doesn't quite grab me, but Rachel's enjoying it, so I'm happy. So right, we'll go through some comments. Let's have a look. So Steve is in. He was in very early doors, I think, before we even went live. 7:46. That one. Steve, as always. Evening team SW. Andy says evening all from Plymouth. John Booth is in. Evening all. Adam Bull is in. Oliver Hardwick's in, evening all. MK Spokes, hey boys. Andy S, a very good evening to everyone. Harry's in. It says, hi all. Jacob's in, says, good evening, Ben. How you doing? You looking forward to the season? I am. I'm very much looking forward to it at this point.
It feels close now, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's past that point of it's this season. It's like, no, it really is this season.
Oh, it's we're well past that now. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Two related questions here. Andy says, do we know who the vice captain will be? And Steve says, just wonder how Jacko felt not getting captain as vice captain last year. I would suspect that Jacko would keep that position.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think clubs normally announce that, do they? But well, certainly we haven't done in the last few years. But I would expect Jacko to still have that. Yeah, good question. Like, would Jacko be disappointed to not get it? Maybe so. But I think Tendai played more games than Jacko did. So,
yep. Keith says, evening fellas, hope you keep him well. Ian's here, says evening all. Carl's in, says evening chaps, not long now till kickoff. We nearly made it up the imps. Paul's in, it says, good evening, how we doing? Hope we're both well. He says, not sure you can read too much into preseason games. It's all about minutes and systems, which is exactly what we're going to talk about. Dave Tupland's just shown up with, I'm a bit late tonight. You've missed the first half of the show. But we will crack in with the second half shortly. There was something I wanted to mention, but I can't remember what it was.
Must have been important.
Yeah, sorry. There was a very pointless moment there. There was an extremely funny. One thing I did want to talk about. Actually, there was an extremely funny video that's doing the rounds from a Coldplay concert today. I don't know if you've seen it, but you know how they do, like, sometimes they'll do like a camera that focuses on people in the crowd. And there's like, the lovely couple, look at them, they're great. And it showed like somebody in the crowd at the front, and then it panned to somebody in like this couple in the audience. Like the guy's got his arms around the woman and everything. And he's like, oh, who's this couple? And then they see on the big screen, and they both look absolutely mortified and like try and hide.
Oh no!
It turns out that he's the CEO of a company, and she's the head of HR of the same company, and they're both married to different people.
Oh dear.
Yes.
That's a bad thing.
Yes. So that's gone very viral on the internet, and I'm not going to lie, it's quite funny. So yes, we'll there you go. That's your weekly meme update from the Stacey.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I spend so little time on social media these days. I do need an update now and then. Yeah,
no. So cool. Right. Well, if that's all good, we will come back in to the main pod in a moment while I remember what we're going to do. There we go. That's what we've got. So in 3, 2, 1, and we are back. Thank you to those of you that are watching it live on the YouTube and listening to the adverts, if you are listening to the podcast after the fact. So, like I said before, we are well into preseason now. We are past the point that it feels odd to call it this season. We are fully in the flow of it. And this week, the team have been out in Portugal doing some warm weather training, although I think the argument could possibly be made that they may have been able to do that by staying at home at the EPC. But they've had, some warm weather training, and they've also had a friendly against Bromley while they've been out there. The friendly ended 4-3 to Bromley after extra time. We managed to get it back to 3-3, and then the final goal was scored, I think, in the very last minute of the game, if I remember rightly. So, it brings the friendly count at the minute. Let me just see if I've got this right. So we had a 2-0 win against Hull, a 1-0 win against Leicester, a 5-3 loss against Huddersfield, and 4-3 against Bromley.
Yeah.
As Paul has mentioned in the chat, he says, you can't really read too much into preseason games. It's all about, getting the minutes and getting minutes into the players and working out systems, things like that. But I think one thing that is always an unwelcome takeaway from preseason games is a series of injuries. I think the news came out after the friendly that we currently have injury concerns around 4 players. So I think let's just have a quick look here. So we've got Oshin Gallagher, MJ Kamson Kamara, Eric Ring, and Lewis Monsma. Now, the word Lewis and Scan were mentioned in the same sentence, which is enough to send a shiver down any Lincoln City fan's spine. But I mean, your thoughts on some of the stuff that's been coming out of the friendlies, and the fact that we may be potentially looking at some newer injury concerns. I mean, obviously, Dom Jeffries is out for a little bit longer. We knew he wasn't going to see preseason anyway. So, yeah, interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, a few bits and bobs. I'm with you, and I'm with Paul in the chat in that read almost nothing into the preseason friendlies. It's nice that football is happening again, but it isn't proper football because in every one of those 4 games so far, we've had 2 distinct 11s that have played varying number, like the same number of minutes, but are gradually building up. So, for example, the game against Bromley was 2 60-minute 11s. So it's not proper football yet. You can't read anything into the result because those 2 11s will be combined to create a full squad in the actual football season. So is it good that certain players have been getting on the score sheet? You know, James Collins has already scored 3 goals in pre-season. That's good. You know, Javen McCarmer, Freddie Draper have got on the score sheet as well in terms of forward players, and Hackett, Riley Towell and Ben Hamer and Jack Moreland as well. So yeah, scoring some goals, that's nice to see. Conceding a few goals, not quite so nice to see. But if anyone wants to watch any of the highlights, I wouldn't recommend it, by the way, but you can watch the Huddersfield game highlights. There are some interesting moments in that game, but it is just pre-season. You really can read nothing into results. It is about fitness. I think you can start to read a little bit more, possibly on Tuesday against Grimsby, and then particularly against West Brom on Saturday. Now, I'm not saying that the team that plays against West Brom is going to start against Reading on the opening day, but at least I imagine the 2 11s element is going to stop, and it will be more of a squad, a combined squad, and it'll feel a bit more like proper football. But just like all pre-season, we really, really hope that no one comes out with any more additional injuries out of those 2 games. So on injuries, MJ and Oshin have been desperately unlucky. Both of them had really successful loans in the first half of last season, and then both picked up injuries, long injuries. And it sounds like they both picked up long injuries or longish injuries again in this preseason after having a good start, which is really, really disappointing for them. Now, in all honesty, when you see there are 4 players that have picked up injuries in preseason, you think, oh no. And then when you see those 2 names, because they're not established first team players yet, you kind of think, okay, it's genuinely upsetting for them. You do feel for them, but does it directly impact us on the pitch right now? No, I didn't expect either of them to be first team players this season. Now, the other 2 obviously do have a slightly more of an impact. Lewis Monster, like you say, when you see Lewis and Scan in the same sentence, it's a little bit scary. But he's rolled his ankle, so at least it's not either of his knees. Was the first thing that kind of popped into my head. So hopefully that's not going to be too long. Eric Ring was disappointing. Apparently, he had a fitness test before the most recent friendly and decided not to risk it. So I'm hoping there's nothing too significant there. But I do know, I can't remember what player it was last season, but we thought it was, I had a fitness test, wasn't 100% sure, went and got his stats scanned, and it was more serious than we thought it was. So I'm not going to just count my chickens and assume Eric's okay, but obviously we really hope he is, because I think he is primed for a bit of a breakout season this season. I really do fancy Eric to kick on and become a bit of a key player for us. So really hopeful there's not too much there. But yeah, I suppose that's one part of the pitch we do have cover. I would like Eric to play, but we do have a lot of cover in that part of the pitch. Lewis, again, would be part of a defensive department, but would unlikely to be a guaranteed starter week in, week out. He'll be fighting for his place each week. But we do have cover at centre back as well. So I think if we had to pick any positions on the pitch where we were going to pick up injuries, I think centre back or kind of wide midfield or centre mid. To be honest, any midfielder would probably okay as long as it's not Ethan Aran. It's a shame. It's a shame, but I just hope we don't pick up any more in the next 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I think the wording around Eric Ring seems to be that it's precautionary at the minute. So he was almost going to play and then didn't. So it's like, okay, cool. It's not like he's snapped his leg in 4 places or anything like that. That's a promising sign, I think, on that front. But I'd hope that precaution is obviously a good thing to have when you come into, well, when you're talking about players that are going to be putting in 40, 50 games hopefully this season, and if they can take every precaution to make sure that they're going to be fit for as long as they possibly can. Yeah, well, hopefully that all stays okay for him. So Is there anything else that we want to talk about with regard to friendlies? Because I saw when we went, I think 2-0 down to Bromley. I think it was Stu mentioned in our chat. Oh, there's a meltdown happening already, and I just thought to myself, why? It's a preseason game. It's 120 minutes against, it's not going to be the full first 11, and it's a kickabout in the park, isn't it? Except it's a kickabout in the park with people that want to win, that really want to win.
Yeah. He said, "Is there anything else?" No, there's nothing else to talk about in preseason. Like, you read absolutely nothing into these games. If we hadn't scored a goal yet, I'd be concerned. The scoring's
But
good.
we have.
Yeah, obviously more than we'd like, but honestly, mate, I just don't care yet. I won't be going to the Grimsby game, but I will be going to the West Brom because I think I'd be really interested just to have a proper look at us in that last game. But again, I don't really care. It's all about the real games. That's the only reason it is. It's a warm up for when the important stuff happens in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. So that does lead us into a couple of the names that have featured in these friendlies. So 2 names that have been thrown around have obviously been Trialist A and Trialist B. Insert your own joke here about how good Trialists parents would be, the parents in the Trialist family will be feeling, and all the rest of it. But yeah, so obviously when you see pictures coming in from the games, and you'd see the photos after the fact, people try and identify the Trialists to see if we've got anybody that could be interesting. And we have confirmed that one of the Trialists is Marcel Lavinier, who, according to Gaz's write-up, came in through the Spurs youth setup, and most recently, I think was at Forest Green, I believe.
Yeah, it was most recently at Yeovil on loan from Forest Green.
Yes. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, 24 years old. Seems like a right back by trade. So does that not necessarily write him off, but it's that one that we might look at, particularly given I think what we spoke about not that long ago with regards to right backs, where you're looking at them thinking, do we need one? And then maybe we might do if Tendai is not going to be full Saturday, Tuesday all season.
Yeah, you want someone that's capable of playing at right back. It depends a little bit on Tom Hamer and whether he cements himself as a centre back, or we see him as a cemented centre back that's going to partner Bradley potentially, or maybe Towler. But Tom Hamer has played at right back a lot of his career, could cover there quite comfortably. Personally, I would like us to have 2 players for every position and not have to rely on taking someone out of a position they're already good in to put them somewhere else. So I would like us to sign another right back that could play second fiddle to Tendai. Someone in the J Ben mould, but hopefully someone that's that's is more involved than J Ben. But I mean, in terms of maybe an up and comer rather than someone that's experienced. But it's the other one, Zach Nolan, who we're going to touch on in a moment, that I think I'm slightly more interested in. One thing to point out, and piecing this together, looking at the lineups, but I'm not 100% sure on this. I think Trialist A was Zach Nolan against Bromley, and then Trialist B was due to play in the second. Well, it's not second half because it's not 45 minutes, but the second section against Bromley, and then got injured and had to go off like a minute in. Now, which one's which? I think Lavinier is the one that got injured, but I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But just looking at the lineups, kind of trying to work out who might be playing where. If we are playing a 4-2-3-1, it makes sense that that's the case. But then you could just stick Tendai at left back, and then my theories are all wrong. So we'll have to ask someone who was actually there, because there was. By the way, that's a nice side note. Some lovely pictures of the Imps fans that made the effort to go across and watch the game. And there's a lovely photo of all the Imps fans that were there, and also all the staff and the players all kind of joining together as one photograph. That was a nice, heart-warming picture to see. So, yeah, I suppose both of these players, there's the caveat that one of them is injured at the moment, and we don't know which one it is. Of the two, I don't know. Like this is very much on paper, but Lavinier, there must be a reason why we've taken him in. Of course, there must we think there's something there. 24 is an age that is not that, in football terms, not that young in terms of development. has never played higher than League Two, has gone from League Two to National League top end to National League bottom end in the last 3 seasons. So on paper, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount to get excited about Marcel. But again, we don't have the access to the information that the club do. I don't know how he's played in the games that he has played in. But like you say, we know that we've got someone in at right back. But it's the other chap that particularly interests me, Ben. So I'll let you intro him.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned his name. So Zach Nolan is on trial with us at the moment. So he is a left back. So everybody's ears suddenly prick up because we need one of those. Apparently he's had some a degree of interest from much bigger clubs, including Atalanta over in Serie A. 19-year-old, made 32 league appearances in the League of Ireland last season, 37 in all competitions. And I think, has he set a record for speed on the pitch? I seem to think I've read somewhere that he'd been the fastest player on a football pitch, except for I think possibly like Thierry Henry in his prime.
There's only one article that I could find on this, because it sounds like he's got one very much a standout attribute, which is fast at running. But the article on, I can't remember what it was now. It was an Irish newspaper that I checked out earlier. That so he clocked in at 35 kilometers an hour, and in the 2024, because obviously Irish League it's the Irish First Division, by the way, not the League of Ireland Prem. But there's not a lot of data for that league, so how they've got this, I'm not totally sure. But ultimately, he was clocked at 35 kilometers an hour at his top speed, which is pretty frightening. The only players, according to this article, that had been clocked higher that year was Antonio Rudiger, Kylian Mbappe, and Erling Haaland. But ultimately, that might just be name dropping a little bit. But ultimately, I think he's clearly got one real standout attribute. I can't say I've seen this guy play. I can't compare him to Cohen Bramall in any other way than blistering pace. But there's a reason that Cohen Bramall kept getting good moves up the leagues. It's because any coach is going to think, well, you can't teach that, but we can polish everything else. We can mold everything else. And if he takes on that information, then wow, we've got a hell of a player here that can make you a lot of money down the line as well. But I do think there's something in this, because, of course, we need a left back. We've got Riley Towler, who can play there, but primarily a centre back, would certainly be a more defensive-minded, more kind of solid left back. So we probably need another one. We need a slightly quicker one, that's more forward-thinking, one that's going to get on the outside, on the overlap. And then we can pick and choose depending on opposition, depending on game state in match. I think that's something that we mentioned right at the end of last season was, what would you like to see different in terms of squad makeup? And one thing I said is just adaptability, having different profiles of player that can play in the same part of the pitch, but do it differently, which allows us to be adaptable. So if we play our 4-2-3-1 and we say we've got Rico Hackett playing left wing, natural left footer, going to hold the width, we can probably play a slightly more defensive left back on that side, and you have a more forward thinking on the other side. You play Eric Ring out there. He's going to cut inside, but starts wide and then cuts in. So you can probably get away with either. You play Jack Moore on the left wing, who will naturally collect the ball more centrally, will drift inside, and there's a big open gap on the left wing that you'd quite like an attacking, very fast left back to go and occupy. Well, we don't have that sort of player in the squad yet. So this excites me a little bit because it's a profile that I'd like to see. The reported interest is from Serie A, obviously catches your eye a little bit. So it's not just Atalanta, it's Serie B teams, Monza and Brescia as well, has been linked with in the past. That might seem a bit random, but there are a few success stories really of young Irish players going from Irish clubs into Italian football. Festi Ebisele was also at Bray Wanderers as a blistering pace, went to Udinese, now playing in the Turkish Super League. There's a chap called Kevin Zeffi, who's a 20-year-old forward who currently plays for Roma, who was previously at AC Milan, who was signed from Shamrock Rovers. Shayden Mullen from Dundalk, playing for Torino. James Abankwa as well at Udinese, signed from St. Pat's. So it sounds like there's a bit of a happy hunting ground for teenage Irish talent to be linked and therefore have made some moves to Irish teams in the past. So it makes you think that that's not just a random kind of journalist, a clickbaity
it's not a speculative
journalist.
punt, is it? It's one of those.
Just randomly writing a big team down to make kind of catch your eye. That it seems to be some sort of at least reference point in that regard. So yeah, I quite like this. There's not a lot of data for this, so I can't tell you what sort of player he is, how many passes and how many crosses he's done. You'll all be pleased to know. But ultimately, he's clearly fast, and he's a left back. So that's 2 ticks in my box really in terms of the gap in the squad at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we've, having spoken to Jez and Liam and Michael about what they're after and the profiles of players, I think when you look at the top of their lists of attributes that they're after, pace and power always seems to be top of those lists. So hopefully that would be a good one. Just Andy says here in the chat that Nolan played the full 3 games for us, which is surely there's a sign there that there might be something brewing, whether that's a case of getting him used to the squad or whatever before a contract's made. I mean, I'm sure he'll have offers on the table for him. So yeah, that will be.
If that's the case, you'd like to think we're quite well placed, considering he's been here clearly been here for a couple of weeks. Yes. So yes, I'll be honest with you, Ben. If you'd asked me who is Zach Nolan a week ago, I wouldn't know. But after doing a little bit of research and looking at what I have, if it was to be announced tomorrow that we'd agreed a deal with him, I think I'd be be quite excited about that actually. And probably wouldn't be someone that I would expect to start every single game, but could he be a diamond in the rough? Maybe so.
Well, there we go. So that is the trialists and the injuries situation at the moment with preseason nearly complete. We're clawing our way to the 2nd of August at the moment, aren't we? So I can't wait.
I genuinely can't
wait. So right, we've taken a couple of questions from the Discord at the moment. So if you want to get involved, patreon.com/the Stacey West. I think I always get that wrong. Go to staceywest.net and then have a look on there to click through to the Patreon. £2 a month supports what we do, what Gaz does. And then it gets you access to the Discord. The Discord is full of great people. We love our patrons in there, full of lots of interesting discussion. And we occasionally will throw out the call for some questions, and these questions do come in as follows. So Scunny Imp asks, we are very good at set pieces, but do you think that's creating a typecast on our style and has affected our ability to sell a player for 7 figures? If not, what do you think is holding us back from getting that kind of fee, as there's a few in our league that have sold for a decent sum this summer? Obviously, with one eye on Ethan Irahan on that question. I think it's a very solid, it's a very interesting question that I don't think necessarily has the right answer. It's a weird one, isn't it? Like I don't know what the answer is to that. Why can't we why don't we have the record of selling players? The easy comparison to make is Peterborough, because we've seen what they've done time and time again. But we've got players that we think we could sell for a decent sum. And then they don't. I mean, obviously we've still got time, and I think that's the weird thing about this preseason, isn't it? Where we're all anticipating and maybe hoping that Ethan Irahan's going to be going when he's our best player. So why do we want him to go? It's because he's going to make us.
I mean, if he does go, we'll have a good amount of money. If he doesn't, we get a good player for. And it's not like he's out of contract at the end of the season. So I'm quite
and that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like you've got a player who was player of the season a couple of years ago. I don't want him to go, but at the same time, $1 million plus would be a really nice sum of money to invest.
Yeah.
But what do you think it is? We've not got a reputation for selling players that have gone on to that have made us £1 million, shall we say? Why?
I think, in all honesty, there's maybe 3 or 4 elements to this, but one of them is what you just said. We haven't got a reputation for it yet, and part of it is reputation. I think we haven't done it yet, and I think as soon as we've done one, then you can start to ask for bigger fees. I don't think that's the only factor, of course, but does that play a small part? Yeah, I just don't think we've been doing it for long enough for it to be a real. Even though we've had some success, if you're a Championship club, and as much as Championship clubs don't shop in League One too much now, if you are a Championship club wanted to shop in League One, like there are probably some clubs that you think of first and foremost that you'll take a look at. We've said it before. Peterborough have been there, done it, got the T-shirt. Been doing it for a decade or so, and also the fact that as much as we've sold a few players recently, we haven't sold any forwards yet for big fees, and it's the forwards that make the majority of those the largest fees. So yeah, reputation of not doing it yet, the fact that we haven't done it yet, and also the fact that we haven't really sold a forward player just yet, despite making pretty decent fees by our standards for other players. But just in other part of that question in relation to our reliance on set pieces, does that impact it? I don't think so, providing our style isn't like Stevenage in terms of
that was the exact thing that came into my head.
You literally play solely for set pieces pretty much, or get the ball wide, not the ball in the box, and play kind of attritional football. Hey, I personally don't have anything against it as a style for certain clubs. I wouldn't like us to do it. I think it can be effective. It's not very, we have, and it worked. But it's not great as a development club because you can't have enough time on the ball. So if the players that we're wanting to sell potentially for big fees in the future have time on the ball, are threatening, and we're scoring some goals from open play as well as set pieces, I think set pieces can just be a bonus then. If you're reliant on set pieces, like in all honesty, we probably were a little bit mid-season last season, then it could possibly become a factor. But with our system shifting to playing wide players and in quite a fast-paced game, generally speaking, I don't think the style will have a negative impact. I think it's just we need a forward player, i.e. we need Jovan Makama to score 15 goals this season from right wing. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were then able to be able to ask for 3 or 4 million quid. If he has a real breakout season where a bit like a Kwame Poku style, like, well, he's too good for the league. That's sort of when you look at it, because he has the potential to grow into that towards the end of this season. And then I think once you've done one, then you can justify asking that fee for another, can't you? But it's just getting that first one and gradually building. And I think the fees that we've sold players for have been, ticking over around the £500,000 mark, haven't they, up to that recently? So we just need that first one that gets us that 7 figures. And I think, potentially that's when the floodgates potentially will open. But yeah, it's weird because how much is a player really worth? It's how much a team is willing to pay for him at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's Kate makes the point here. Let's not forget that what the fans think a player is worth might not actually be the market value of the player. I suspect Ethan will go for a figure closer to 500k than $1 million. I mean, I think if we're sitting here in January 2027, it will be 2027. If we're sitting here January 27, Ethan Arahan is still with us as a club, as a player, and he's still with us, then at that point, it might well be a case of get what we can for him. Up until that point, Ethan Arahan, I think it's known that there is a 7-figure release clause in his contract. So if he were to go before a point at which we don't feel that value is worth it, he will go for over £1 million. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, though I think Kate's point is very, very valid.
Oh, 100% is. Yeah, I'm not denying that at all. No.
The only exception to that is probably Ethan Arahan. I think every other player in the squad, you're probably right. I think we overvalue them. All of us overvalue players. Market value probably is a little bit lower than we expect it to be. But I think there's something a little bit unique about Ethan Arahan in that it was negotiated at the point that he signed what the fee would need to be for him to be able to move on to pastures new. Everyone knew where they stood before he even signed on the dotted line to join us, let alone now. So I think that's probably a slightly unique situation because that's been made very clear. I think Ethan Arahan represents a far larger outlay in terms of initial fee from our end that we would need to recoup a significant amount for that to be a justifiable deal. But for every other player in the squad, I think Kate's point is absolutely right.
Yep. I think the other thing as well, just going back to the bit about the style affecting the value of the player, ultimately, I don't think it will, because as we know and as we've heard and as we've seen, it's based on player attributes rather than, clubs will make a signing decision based on a player's attributes first and foremost. Obviously, the style of play of a club will come into it at some point. If Stevenage, for example, are looking for a new striker, they'll probably look for somebody that's Jaden Stockley-esque. He's big, he gets his elbows everywhere and all the rest of it. But it's not determined by the style of the club that they currently play for. It's always going to be around the individual's personal physical attributes.
Yes. I think there is an element to it, though, because if the style of the club doesn't suit that player, then they're not going to stand out as in data and in scouting. For example, Joe von Nakama, when we were playing 3-5-2, didn't look anywhere near as effective as he did when he played right wing when we were playing 4-2-3-1. Yeah. Suddenly, he's playing in a position that suits him in a system that suits him. He shines. He becomes a fan favourite. Whereas, and now you imagine he's going to be on at least a short list or long list of certain championship clubs. Whereas this time last year, he probably wouldn't have been. And that was probably as much about our stylistic change as it was about his ability.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question that we have from the Discord this week, admittedly, I did put the call out for questions at about 7 o'clock and we went live at 8, so let's not worry about that too much, why we don't have many. Andy Bully says, despite Birmingham and Wrexham getting promoted last season, do you think League One will be tougher this season? Thinking of teams like Reading and Wigan being stronger than last year. I think there might be a tighter bunching of teams. We always talk about the sort of 3 mini leagues, don't we? Within League One, you've got the ones at the top that are just going to spend all the money and think they're going to run away with it, and then they'll end up being their own little mini league. You've then got the ones that are really going to struggle, and then you've got the pack that I think we will probably be at the forefront of. I think that grouping in the middle, there will be more clubs in there, and I think it will be a lot tighter than it was last season.
Yes, probably. Yeah, I think the big outlier is Birmingham have gone in terms of, because as much as Wrexham did spend a lot on wages and from January onwards with transfer fees, like at this time last year, all of us were predicting Wrexham to not even be in the top 6 because they hadn't been particularly active in the transfer window, and we didn't feel that they had a squad particularly strong. Now, obviously, we all look a bit silly now after making that prediction, but I think
halfway through the season, they strengthened massively, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in regards to finance, though, I just think Birmingham were a different beast, weren't they? So they're gone. Yes. So I don't think this is a Birmingham, but even when like Ipswich spent a lot of money, even when Sunderland did, they weren't doing it to the levels that Birmingham did. That was a bit of an anomaly.
On the other side of that, though, you've got Luton coming down who have parachute payments.
Yes. In terms of how much money do they have?
Yeah, like A, how much do they have? And B, are they going to use it in the same way that Birmingham did?
Looking at Luton's window so far, no. They have looks like they've recruited a lot of experience and they've recruited players for this season to get them out of League One. That seems to be their main aim. They're not spending 10, 15 million quid on upcoming players. They are signing 30-ish players, like age group, to get them out of the league. But ultimately, Birmingham are gone. But everything else, I think, is pretty much similar to last year. Now, this time last year, we saw a 58% increase across the average wage in League One. That was a freakish in nature. Yeah. I would not expect to see another 58% rise, but I also don't expect it to have gone down. We're probably fighting a similar battle that we did this time last year. Just to kind of pick on a few teams, Huddersfield, I think, are recruiting strongly. It's not all about recruitment because other teams have got strong squads without the players they've brought in, of course. But Huddersfield look like they're really going for it. Luton, you've already mentioned. Reading look like they're upwardly mobile now and have got new ownership and finally got that monkey off their back. Blackpool have made some eye-catching signings and clearly are ambitious this year. Bolton will expect a better season. Cardiff are a bit of an unknown quantity, of course. A few question marks around ownership, haven't got any I haven't signed anybody, but I've still got a reasonable squad on paper. Plymouth would probably expect to be in the top 6. Stockport will probably expect to be thereabouts again, though I think they're a little bit kind of further away than they were last year. And then, of course, Wickham, who have been very, very, very active, making quite a few statement signings. So that's a handful of teams. I think there's probably going to be a similar number of teams that we expect to be in and around that top 6 area as there was last year. What we saw last year was a few of them starting slowly, and we were up there thinking, oh, we could do it. And then
it was that false hope, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously we had a poor run over Christmas, but also the teams that you expected to be up there that started slowly ended up doing what you expected them to from the beginning of the season, pick up some results and end up getting themselves up the league. So I probably expect something similar to happen this year. I agree with you. I think there's a bigger mid-table group now. Slightly bigger mid-table group. I don't think relegation is as clearly defined as it maybe was last year. Like everyone put Shrewsbury in the bottom 4 last season. Everyone put Crawley in the bottom 4 last season. Most people put Cambridge in the bottom 4 and their 1 to 24 last season because it was almost obvious that was kind of going to be the case. I don't think it's as obvious this year who's going to be right down there. I think it's probably just got a massive, massive mid-table, really. You've got the teams that really, really want to go for it, and then you've got everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm racking my brains, and I cannot remember for the life of me who has come up. I know Bradford obviously did.
Bradford,
Wimbledon,
Port Vale, Wimbledon, and
Doncaster, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course, Doncaster. Well, how could I forget?
So, I mean, of those teams, I can't really see any of them dropping straight back down.
No, no, probably not.
Wimbledon, the question mark for me.
Yeah, they'll battle, won't they? I think the big difference is none of them are going to expect to be able to go again. Whereas last season, I think Wrexham expected to be there, and Stockport wanted to give it a good go. So there was no doubt that they were going to be safe by a mile and we're going to be close to the top end. I don't think we've got any team that's coming up that's will have ambitions or genuine ambitions or expectations of finishing the top 6. But like you say, there's none of them that you're looking at and thinking, a bit like when Crawley got promoted, sold all their players. You think they've got in not particularly convincing League One squad. You can see them struggling. I don't think there's anyone I'm looking at in League One that you see really, really struggling. I know Gary had a little bit of a joke around Mansfield. I do see them as being one of the weaker teams in the league, certainly. But I can't see anyone that's cannon fodder. No. And I could last year.
I think that the thing that maybe concerns me a little bit, and it's not this season, but it's potentially 2 or 3 seasons down the line. When we did the live show with the kit reveal, and we were talking about a few things, it struck me that, hang on a minute, if we're getting players on 3-year contracts at this point, with the wages having been inflated so much last year with Birmingham, I don't see that dropping for another 3-4 seasons until those contracts that people have signed last year are going to start to expire. So at what point do we start to worry about becoming a Shrewsbury?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid question. And now, because you're thinking about it now. I mean, that's sensible to plan that far ahead and think about it that far ahead. And is it directly going to impact us this season or next season? Probably not. But yeah, long term, the people at the football club are, I hope we don't want me speaking on your behalf here, but they're cleverer than you and me at football. And it's their job to be good at football management, isn't it? So you'd like to think that if we're thinking about that, they thought about that a hell of a lot more than we have. But yeah, there will become a point, I think, in the future, unless something changes in terms of rules, which I really hope that the regulator can. I think that's probably what I'm putting all my hope on, is that the regulator will have some teeth and bring just something in. I don't think they're going to be too strong, but just something which stipulates a maximum amount that teams can spend, or that just closes the gap a little bit, so that we're not just punching above our weight consistently. Because if we keep spending exactly what we're spending now, and everyone keeps spending more and more and more and more, you end up as a Shrewsbury and you end up going down. And our wage bill was 17th. We finished plus 6th, and we finished 11th. Brilliant, that's great. But if you've got a 24th wage bill, you've got to come plus 4 every single season. to stay up. And it's rare that teams overachieve their wage bill every single season. I think it's only Exeter that have done it since they've been in League One. So
it's going to take one. It'll take one season on par with where we are in terms of the wage bill, and we're starting to look like we might be in trouble. So, yeah,
but I think we're going to be fine this season, Ben. Though
this season will be fine.
Let's not be all down in the dumps.
Oh no, I'm not. I didn't mean to bring the mood down. I did not at all. But it was one of those questions where I just thought, look, we know how much money got ploughed into the division last season, and as we have seen in life with things like the your utility bills and all the rest of it, and food prices, once the prices go up, it's very rare that they come back down to where they were. If you're going to be doing that with footballers' wages, it's not going to change anytime soon, because they will want as much money as they can get. The agents will want as much money as they can get for the players, and it's going to be a shit show for a good few years until the regulator might come in. But we might have some insight on what people think around the regulator this time next week, if not before, because we may. I'm being intentionally slightly vague around this one, but we may have a very special podcast dropping next week with a very special guest. I think if everything, I believe it's been recorded Monday, but I'm not 100% on that one. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled on that, because there's a lot of people have been asking for it, and we've managed to secure the podcast that I think some people have wanted. So,
he's a smooth operator. That was we weren't even expecting to talk about this. And what a beautiful segue you've done there, Ben. And of course, this is the Stacey West podcast. So when we do a segue, we have to
call it
tell
out.
You about it. Yes, of course.
I was genuinely pleased with myself there. Yeah. So,
yeah, should be. But just to finish off on that point, because we've definitely rambled enough about that. But just one more point is that it's not an issue this season. It's not an issue next season, but it could be down the line. I hope that I expect the club are planning for it. I quite like being the underdog, though. I wouldn't want to be Shrewsbury in 24th and having to fight that far up just to stay up. But I like having to punch above your weight to do something almost impossible. But as we know, impossible is just an opinion. And that's what a statement to finish on, eh?
Absolutely. Well, indeed, what a statement to finish on. That is going to be the finishing point on this episode of the Stacey West podcast, episode number 391, to be precise. I've been Ben. He has been Chris, and I'm sure we will see you next week. I think it might actually be me and you again on the rota for next week, and I've had to step in this week. But yeah, we will discuss and we will see soon. But as always, until next time, up the imps.
Up the imps.